Congressman Paul, nice to have you on the program, sir.
Good, thank you.
Let me start by asking, we've been reading a lot about your wife. How is she?
She's doing very well. Thank you for asking. She's getting a lot better now.
Good, good. Congratulations. You ran a heck of a campaign. Whether one agrees or disagrees, first of all, I'm grateful you showed up for our debate last year, so thank you for that. But whether one agrees, we had a lot of fun too. Whether one agrees or disagrees, you struck a chord in the country, and particularly with the young people. Tell me what you did that struck that chord so well this time around.
I keep trying to figure it out,
yeah.
and other people ask me because they want to do it.
Right.
I think it's basic the ideas, and what I'm so pleased about it, the young people like it, but I preach a lot about self-reliance and, taking care of oneself and being responsible. It also means that you have a right to your life and run your life as you choose, and you have personal liberties, the protection of civil liberties, and not try to have somebody micromanage people's personal lifestyles. I think that young people sort of like that. But I also blend that in with you have a right to make as much money as you want, and you ought to have a right to keep it or spend it the way you want, and they like that. But I think it's foreign policy. That's been a big issue for young people. I think they see the burden of the foreign policy falling on them in case these wars keep spreading, and they seem to be very persistent. The selective service is still there, and they know they're inheriting the financial burden. They understand that, but they also don't like the idea that they might be forced to go overseas. And they see a lot of their friends who've gone over and either loss of life or been injured and are sick. And I think they like my very, very precise position of a different kind of foreign policy, which sometimes they accuse me of it not being a Republican, but quite frankly, there have been Republicans in the past that have advocated the same foreign policy position.
Aside from foreign policy, which I'll come back to, I promise in just a second, aside from that, how does the rest of your agenda differ that dramatically from Mr. McCain's agenda, or from that of the larger Republican Party?
Well, in probably spending, he would be willing to spend a lot more money than I would be, and that has to be related to foreign policy because a lot of money goes there. Take McCain-Feingold, which is an interference, I believe, on the First Amendment.
Campaign finance reform.
Yeah, campaign finance reform. I didn't like that. On taxes, he's voted for higher taxes. He's never resisted the expansion of the Department of Education. So from a conservative viewpoint, there has been some pretty strong disagreements.
So back to foreign policy now. The major difference between your foreign policy agenda and his is?
Probably the same as my disagreement with the Democratic Party, too, and that is they basically endorse the idea that we have a moral and constitutional responsibility to be everywhere, to police the world, go into nation building. Although George Bush won in the year 2000, taking the position similar to mine, we do too much nation building and too much interference around the world. And mine is very precise, and I just don't think we should do it. I don't think our interests are best served by having troops everywhere. For one reason, I don't think we can afford it, and I just don't like the idea that we've invaded countries that have not attacked us, that we're in Iraq, we're in Afghanistan, we threaten the Iranians, and everybody hardly even questions, Republicans or Democrats, oh yeah, we should be in Georgia. I mean, why? They're fighting over there. We're going to rebuild the army that we had already built. The main reason is there's an oil line going through Georgia. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I differ with John McCain on, but I differ with Obama as well.
This oil, and for that matter, the environment in a much larger sense, but certainly this issue of oil and our oil dependence is going to be an issue in this campaign, already is, given certainly Mr. McCain's pick of Ms. Palin out of Alaska. Give me your sense on what we ought to be doing about this oil problem that we have.
Well, get the government out of the way. The government has caused the problem because we go to war to protect our oil. And oil, at the time we went into Iraq, was $27 a barrel. Now it's well over $100 a barrel, so it doesn't really help. Government gets in the way by subsidizing corporations to make ethanol from corn. That hasn't helped. Nobody's proven that that was an economic correct decision because it's cheaper to make ethanol from sugarcane, and we could import it cheaper than we make it from corn. But if you really want to make cheap ethanol, you make it from hemp. But that's illegal, and we get in the way. I personally think, although individuals should make the decision of what is the best source of energy, the market should. But I personally think nuclear power is safe and clean and efficient. You can have electricity, you can run electric cars, and yet we have a lot of obstacles in our way. So we put pressure on burning more coal, and we take away the incentive then to have more nuclear power.
So all that said, you've been running a shadow convention, a counter convention outside of this hall for another set of delegates, if you will. Tell me about your convention that you've been running.
Well, it's not quite another set of delegates. Our delegates come over, but of course our numbers are small as far as, you know, having an influence in this convention. But we did have over 12,000 people show up to hear the message and to learn how to participate in the electoral process, not this year, but later. But even though this year we found out, to our surprise, that a lot of them have already filed for being for city council and mayors and state reps. That's how enthusiastic they've been. So there's a lot of momentum. This was mainly to celebrate what has happened the past year, how these young people have been energized, and how we can promote these ideas and lay plans for the future. So it was a lot of fun.
As you well know, John McCain, if elected, would be the oldest person we've ever elected as president when he's inaugurated. You, back to our earlier point, and this is my quick exit question, back to our earlier point, you did something as an older American, as one, as my grandmother would say, as one who's more chronologically gifted.
There you
In
go.
your chronological giftedness, you were able to strike a chord, a relationship with young Americans. What advice would you have for John McCain about how to do that if he can?
There's only one way you can do it.
Right.
And that is you have to have a different philosophy. It's the philosophy,
right,
you know, because we are of similar age. But the ideas of true liberty is a very young idea, and it appeals to young people. So in ideologically speaking, I have a very young idea, and that's a very appealing to young people. Young people are very idealistic, and they like that. They like consistency, and I've been impressed that they like the idea of self-reliance. A lot of people assume, oh no, they just want to be taken care of from cradle to grave. I don't believe that anymore.
A lot of folks were impressed at your campaign. I'm honored to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Congressman.
Thank you very much.
All the best to you.